Now we're live. Okay, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started just because I know this is recorded. And we'll be able to push it to our podcast and video channels and all that good stuff. And I have a couple of fun people to talk with today. So for those that don't know who I am, I'm Larry Cornett. Worked in the tech industry in Silicon Valley for a couple of decades, left in 2010, been coaching for the last 10 years. So a lot of career and leadership coaching, getting into business coaching, and now starting to get into a little bit of empowerment and life coaching, if you want to call it that. And really trying to help people have a more exciting and adventurous second half of life. And so what I'm trying to do is encourage people to be independent, potentially go self-employed, be semi-retired, and actually start to enjoy the second half of their life. And there's a lot that goes into that, which is the topic that we're going to get into today. And I'm joined by my wife, Nicole.
Hi.
She's at a different location today. We've been married 35 and a half years. It's a long time.
Little while.
Just a little while. And she's the one to thank for getting me to invest in my health again, got me into CrossFit, and we're both still weightlifting and hiking and running and doing all that kind of stuff, which is a big part of having an exciting second half of life and being healthy and making sure that that second half isn't going to be something that's unpleasant, not as adventurous as you'd like it to be. And so now we're in our empty nest phase of life and having more adventures. And
More
then
freedom.
more freedom. Yeah, more freedom. And then today we're joined by Dr. Amber Hall. So she is a U.S. board certified physician. She's currently licensed and practicing women's health in British Columbia. What a beautiful place. Jealous. Menopause Society certified practitioner, active member of the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health and the International Society for Sexual Medicine. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hall. Can we call you Dr. Hall or Amber?
Thank you so much. You can call me Amber. We can be on a first name basis because we're friends through Substack.
Yeah, Substack's a fun place.
It is.
You get to meet all kinds of cool people.
Yeah. You might hear my office assistants in the background barking. They do that.
I'm sure I didn't accidentally turn my mic off. So maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself, Amber. And one of the other things I'm especially interested in is your transition from the U.S. to Canada. Jealous again. The reasoning behind that and what you've been up to.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I love what you're up to in terms of, career transition and sort of like finding values alignment with one's career goals and just sort of evolving throughout life, never being boring. And so I respect the work that you're doing here, and I'm excited to be talking to the both of you. My name is Dr. Amber Hall. I, as you said, I have my board certification, so I train in medicine in the United States. I did my undergrad in integrative physiology at the University of Colorado in Boulder and actually cut my teeth doing clinical research on the integrative physiology of aging. And so we were looking at things like glucose metabolism and like differences in endothelial and cardiovascular function between sedentary and older adults. This is way back in like the late around 2005 to 2007. After medical school, I did research in pediatric diabetes at the Children's Hospital in Denver for about 2.5 years. So we were looking at, again, insulin resistance, but this time in kids with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Did medical school at the Arizona College of Osteopathic Medicine. So kind of more a holistic, as they say, approach to medicine. Did all of my elective rotations in medical school thinking I wanted to be an OBGYN. So I did GYN oncology at Mayo Clinic. I did pelvic floor reconstructive surgery. I did pelvic floor, high-risk pregnancy and delivery at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. I delivered a bunch of babies down on the border in southern Arizona. But all of the U.S. OBGYNs that I worked with were like, you will get sued probably multiple times in your career. Your quality of life will not be good. You'll always be on call. You will lose both infants and mothers in the course of your
Yeah.
profession. And so if there's another specialty, then you should do that. So I did pediatrics. And within peds, I specialized more in, my interest was in maternal child health and maternal fetal medicine. So high risk
Mhm.
pregnancy and delivery, cardiac malformations, chromosomal abnormalities, preterm delivery, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that was a very difficult type of medicine to practice, as you can imagine.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I transitioned more into general pediatrics. See the theme with the like career transitions here? um, and ultimately had my own practice in the States doing mostly like pregnancy, postpartum, and
Mhm.
neonatal medicine. And then kind of got very frustrated with the US healthcare system, as one
Sure.
does,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
and the sort of increasingly fraught political environment around women's and children's health
Yeah.
in the United States, and ended up getting licensed in British Columbia. And now I'm I'm in the process of getting a virtual license in Saskatchewan as well. So I
Oh,
can help
cool.
take care of patients
Wow.
over there. So that's
Nice.
kind of like a big backstory. But
Nice.
hopefully that's at least an introduction that your audience can
Yeah.
become.
Yeah. So one of the things I know we had talked about, which I find very fascinating because I think it's true of many parts of life. I think people try to compartmentalize stuff. And I get into this issue with career coaching all the time too, where it's like career, life, retirement. It's like
Mhm.
it's a full 360 kind of flowing in and out. It's not that discrete. And I know you look at that as well in terms of your philosophy that there's everything that is part of being a human being, which is your physical health, but your
Yeah.
emotional health and your relationships. And I know you said you're now kind of looking at almost like birth to grave, like your patients, like how do I become part of their journey through life? Because who we are and what we experience, it changes every decade and the stuff that we're going through.
Yeah. I used to think so. I got my Menopause Society certified practitioner status like pretty much within a month after I crossed the border into Canada, because an international move isn't enough to take on like a major like professional exam, just as the icing on the cake. So that really came about because I was starting to go through my own experience with, just how I was feeling and my energy levels and my libido, which has always been very important to me. And, the physical symptoms that I was feeling and the terrible sleep and the hot flashes. And I was like,
Yeah.
I am 42 years old. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and they didn't teach us any of this stuff in medical
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
right? Like all those OBGYN rotations, we learned all about babies and surgery. We did not learn anything about this. So I got my certification in that, and when I first started practicing, I was like, I almost felt like it was a liability to be a
Mm.
pediatrician, like practicing midlife health. But the
Mm.
longer I'm in it,
Okay.
and at this point, I also see adolescent patients. So my youngest is 11, kind of, and we talk about puberty and social media and body image and friendship and stuff like that. And I take care of women primarily through midlife. And what I've come to recognize is that having that fetal, like from, you said, like conception, fetal development, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, like having that longitudinal perspective is an asset. It's not a
Yeah.
liability.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, there's so much like of what I take into consideration when we're talking about hormone therapy and pelvic health and things like that. That's like, what's your history of childbirth? What's your history of pregnancy prevention? What is your history? Like, I don't assume that everybody's straight. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
my perspective on sexuality goes way beyond, heterosexual kind of frameworks.
Sure.
And so I think that having that longitudinal perspective, again, like tied in with the longevity stuff and the metabolism stuff and the
Yeah.
glucose and all cardiovascular, is all like it. At this point in my career, I'm like, I have a depth of understanding that is kind of unique in this space. And thank you for the
Yeah.
hearts. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I forgot people can do hearts.
I
uh,
also think if you have experience with adolescents going through hormonal changes and the changes that happen in their body and their emotions and stuff, that can also apply to the things that happen as you go through menopause and perimenopause.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because as I was thinking about this interview and kind of things that we would talk about, you know, I one of the things that I focus on both in my adolescent patients and in my midlife patients is like, let's talk about the follicular phase and the ovulatory phase and
mhm.
the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. Because I have young adolescents who their parents are like, her moods are just like, this feels like PMDD. And how do we cope with this? Like, we don't want to put this
Sure.
child on an antidepressant, and
Hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
this is affecting our quality of life and our interactions as a family. And one of the things that I told a mother actually was like, track her period on your phone, so
Hmm.
that the first day that she starts bleeding is the first day of the menstrual cycle, day one. And follicular phase is the first roughly 9 to 14, like days 9 to 14 are ovulatory. So that first phase, most people are like, oh, I feel energetic, I feel good, I'm optimistic, my workouts are going better. Follicular phase is like the butterfly phase. And then ovulatory is when, women who are sexually active become more receptive to
Hmm.
sexual encounters because their biology is designed that way. And anyone who's
Mhm.
been through a fertility journey understands that.
Hmm.
And then in the luteal phase, when her moods are, she might have headaches, she might have breast pain, she might have cramping, she might have bloating, she may be tired, her workouts don't go as well, she's tearful, she's angry. If you know that that is like she's in luteal phase, she can communicate like, I'm going to protect you from me right now, and I'm going to be a little
Hmm.
bit more standoffish. Then the parent knows how to show up for the kid in a way that's supportive, and it becomes less personal that way.
Oh,
And I
Mm,
actually have a
absolutely.
girlfriend whose male partner started tracking her cycles for the same reason.
yeah.
I suggested that Larry do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Yeah.
helpful.
it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's funny is like part of being human is we like to think we're above all of this, that we're different than animals and other
Separate from the
creatures.
physical, you mean?
Yeah, separate from the physical. And as you were saying, and I know Nicole's been through this too, it's like going into these different phases of life feels sometimes like a bit of a mystery, like you're on this journey by yourself. You're like,
Mhm.
what's going on with me? And then you'll talk and people are like, yeah, yeah, me too. And it's like, why do we not talk
Mhm.
about this? Why is this a
Hmm.
shock and a surprise where I feel like something's wrong with me? Or
Yeah.
why am I feeling this way? Because men go through hormonal stuff too, and especially at this part of my life, right? It changes everything, but no one talks about it. And it's kind of hush hush, especially in America. It's like it's hush hush. And yes, we're supposed to be above that. We're not animals, and hormones don't control us. It's like they do. And I know, like as a male, testosterone has a big impact on my motivation and my
Mhm.
energy levels and my drive. It affects my business, which I didn't expect.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I've really got to work hard, especially at my age, to keep this up. And that's
Mhm.
getting sleep, it's lifting weights, it's all that kind of stuff, and everything. And I know Nicole and I have talked about this too. It's like, why am I the one educating everyone else? And my physician, even, it's like, why? It's like, how am I more of an expert at this than you are? And you kind of have to become your own expert and do tons of research. And it's unfortunate. I'm glad someone like you is working with people, which you can guide them through this instead of them feeling like they're going crazy.
Yeah, it's and it's such a privilege for me because I have a fascination with human sexuality and psychology, and there's a lot of armchair psychology sort
Yeah.
of frameworks out there, like the body keeps the score, the body doesn't keep the score,
Right.
attachment theory, love languages, Mars and Venus, and like at the end of the day, I think it's all sort of like rooted in a desire to understand ourselves and one another
Yeah.
better. And so it contributes to almost like a kind of a predatory in some ways way of selling people on ideas.
Yeah.
And one of the
Yeah.
things I've tried really hard to like steer away from here on Substack is I don't bill myself as like a sexpert or a dating expert or a
Right.
guru, like, and I am transparent with my patients in terms of like where my knowledge base is, where my biases are, and where the gaps in my knowledge base are.
Right. Right.
And they're with this self advocacy, which I think is important. And I have patients who come into me and they're like, talk to me about testosterone, as women. And I am happy to write for testosterone in appropriately managed patients. But I agree with you that there's this whole environment of, self advocacy and self learning. Like I learned about hormone therapy in a Facebook group of women attending physicians. Okay. Who like the
Wow.
point of the Facebook group was to talk about sex, like kinky sex and open relationships and, sex after divorce and sex during breast cancer. Like it was, that was the point of the group. And people started being like, girl, why am I dry? Like, what is
Sure.
happening here? And, and we're in this like private Facebook group messaging about monophasic birth control pills to manage perimenopause because none of us in this group of like 200 attending doctors were ever taught. And so
Wow.
I think that self advocacy is really driving, like, it's pushing the medical community to, really go back and learn things that
Mhm.
we didn't learn because we have a responsibility to patients to understand this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the issues that your patients are coming to you with, and the myths, like you were touching on some of these myths, kind of the myths of, oh, I heard this, or this guru said this, and then the
Mhm.
reality of like what actually does work, what's
Mhm.
snake oil, what's not going to work, and you're kind of being sold a bill of goods if somebody's telling you they have the answer to this. And yeah, men
Yeah.
face this too. There's all the male gurus that are pretty trash, but anyway, I won't get into that.
Oh,
But yeah,
yes.
lots of bad advice out there.
Mm, yeah. What is it? Advice is like opinions, and opinions are like assholes. Everyone has
Everybody
one,
has one.
that kind of thing. But I feel like mine's a little bit more credible. To answer your question, the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
common thing is perimenopause is far and away the most common thing that people are coming in for is, and perimenopause can present in a variety of ways. And sometimes, yes, it's like hot flashes, night sweats, low energy, low mood. Often it's I am so angry, I'm so tearful, I can't remember things, I'm having a hard time finding words. It's affecting my job.
Sure. Yeah,
Like I'm a
yeah.
CEO of an organization, or like I have all these care responsibilities. I'm running a business, I'm taking care of kids, I'm responsible for elder care, and like I don't feel like I can cognitively and emotionally function.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I would say that's far and away the most common thing. And, a lot of GPs are just like, okay, well, here's your antidepressant. Have a nice
I
day.
know. Yeah.
No, that's
And
exactly what happened to me. I thought I was losing my mind in my 40s.
mhm,
I had no idea what was happening. Developed anxiety. Yeah,
Yeah.
cried all the
Yeah.
time, and they wanted to give me an antidepressant. It's like,
You're
well,
like,
that's
yeah,
let's
not
drug you.
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
And sleep, we know that
Mhm.
hormones affect sleep, and people are waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and can't go back to sleep, or
Yes.
they're having like sleep onset issues. And if one's body doesn't have that time to fully recover overnight, like that's when our body recovers. Well,
Right.
of
Yeah.
course, your mood is going to suffer. And of course, you're going to be
Mhm.
too exhausted for sex. And of course, your brain is going to be foggy. And so, to me, it's like you said, it's like all of these things are interconnected, but often in the perimenopause, hormones are the starting place. But there needs to be a very sober conversation about risks and benefits because
Mhm.
it's kind of
Right. Yeah.
the thing about the zeitgeist latching on to this and like everybody saying that everybody needs to be on hormones, not everybody's risk profile or risk
Mhm.
tolerance is the same.
Sure.
And so it's important to do an appropriate workup to see, like, are you at increased risk of blood clots? Are you at increased risk of,
Mhm.
breast cancer? And whatever it is in your history that needs to be assessed before you're just like, okay, hormones for everybody. Let's put it in the tap water, and then
Yeah.
like life will be better. So
It seems like
yeah,
there was like a bit of a pendulum swing with that. For it was, no, nobody should be taking hormones because it's so exceptionally risky. And then it's swung the other way where everybody should. Yeah.
Right.
mhm.
Right.
Instead
Yeah,
of
you're
individualized.
you're absolutely right. And this is the thing, kind of going back to your self advocacy point, that there is a real distrust of institutional medicine right now that I think,
Hmm.
accelerated. It was present before, but it really accelerated with COVID. And I'm not going to go
Yeah.
into,
Yeah.
like, I'll
Sure.
I'll touch a little bit about my personal experience with what happened to me during COVID because it's relevant. But I feel like it's just accelerated since then. And we're kind of at this moment of reckoning with what it means to be healthy and who the gatekeepers are, and, where responsibility lies and
Right.
accountability, which are all important things. And, medicine has gotten it wrong in the past. I think it's a crime against women's health that the Women's Health Initiative, basically took hormones off the table for an entire generation of women who went
Mhm.
on to develop osteoporosis and fragility and muscle loss and cardiovascular disease, which is the leading killer of women. And, it took a real toll on the mental health and like spiritual well-being of all of these women. And they're coming into my office at 65, 70 years old being like, is it too late for me?
Right.
And the
Right.
answer to
So
that question in the
sad.
overwhelming majority of cases is yes, it is a
Hmm.
little too late. Like, it's never too late for vaginal
Yeah.
estrogen, in my opinion.
Okay.
But we've gotten this wrong in the past, and we're trying to get it right now. But I could be very well be proven wrong 15 years down the road, and I try to
Mhm.
be clear eyed about that. Of like,
Hmm.
we're all still learning.
And
Yeah. I
we have
think
to
that's so
take
important.
responsibility. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Mhm.
No, go
I was
ahead.
going to say we have to take responsibility for ourselves in that way, right? That we are,
Yeah,
look at the risks and decide what we're going to do
Yeah.
because we don't know. Don't know.
yeah,
Research is just still changes.
Yeah. It would be nice. I mean, one of the things that would be nice, and I think some medical researchers, doctors are doing this, is like saying, yeah, we don't have all the answers, but we're trying, we're learning.
yeah.
In the past, it's always been like, of course we know. This is exactly what you should be doing. Take this. And we're like, oh no, sorry, that causes cancer. Oh no, now
Mhm,
your children are born with their birth defects, and we're just trying to get rid of your morning sickness. It's like
mhm.
historically we know humans never know. we
Yeah.
we're trying to get better, and we should be honest about that and just say, based on the research, and here's the balanced evidence, here's what could work, and here are the risks. Because I've faced this even with some stuff people recommended for me, and I'm like, are there any side effects or risk? No, none at all. And
Mhm,
then went home, and Nicole did some research. Goes, yeah, there are. What do they
mhm,
mean? There's no side effects and no risk? It's like, that's not being honest with your patients. Like, at least let them know and say, here's what a 30% increase really means in terms of a risk.
mhm,
And you make the call. Is it worth it for you? I have a lot of friends, obviously not going to name names. Everybody's getting on TRT now. And they're like,
mhm,
hey, man, my gains are back. I'm in the gym. I'm this, like, is there any risk of this? No, no, there's no risk. It's all upside, man. It's all upside. Not true. Because
correct.
then my own body stops producing testosterone because it's like, oh, you've got
Mhm,
this. Okay. You don't need me
mhm,
anymore.
mhm.
That's bad. It's like, come
Right?
on, be honest about
Mhm,
this, right? It's like, so it is, you got to know, you have your eyes wide open and do your research. And I know everybody hates to hear that. Do your research. But in some cases, if you know how to do peer reviewed research and actually look at real medical journals instead of what AI tells you, yeah, you can start to get to some of the truth about it and bring stuff up with your doctor and say, okay, I saw that there's this. Do you know anything about this type of treatment or this type of surgery, and what are the risks? And they're like, oh, okay, you're looking into that. It's like, yeah, I'm doing some research. And now you can have a
yeah.
more informed conversation.
Well, and I think that it's about partnership. And I'm not
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
academics for a variety of reasons, but the doctors that I follow on Substack and the doctors who have kind of become like mentors to me see the doctor patient relationship as a less like paternalistic. Like,
Right.
I am not a benevolent dictator. Like, we are partners in this. And, I use, and many of my colleagues use Open Evidence, which is an app. You can download it for free. It's not Google AI. It actually searches the medical literature, and I use it in my clinical encounters. I
That's
had a
great.
patient ask me yesterday about Contrave and like low dose naltrexone combined with like buprenorphine to get at weight loss because her risk
Mm-hmm.
profile for GLP medications is not favorable. And I'm like, I'm going to have to do a little bit of reading and research about this because I'm not really familiar with how to prescribe this in the context of your specific clinical circumstances. And that puts the onus back and the responsibility back on me. I didn't tell her no.
Right.
It's like, I
Yeah.
need to learn more about this. And another thing, peptides. You asked, like, what are some of the things that people are coming into my office asking about?
I
Like,
bet. I bet.
the unregulated peptide industry, it just is like, I
Yeah.
have these very granular conversations with people every day about osteoporosis risk and breast cancer risk and cardiovascular disease risk and genitourinary syndrome of menopause and depression and all this stuff. And there are these influencers out on TikTok who are just like, inject these peptides that you don't know where they came from, you don't know what they're mixed with, you don't know how they're
Right.
sourced, you
Right.
don't know what's in them, and just inject them into your body. And there's no accountability. There's no
Yeah.
tracking system. Like, at least with immunizations, if something goes sideways, you can report it to a database that
Mhm.
keeps track of if there are adverse reactions to those vaccines. And I'm not here to get into a debate about vaccines, but there is nothing like that for peptides. And yet people are just like, you know, Little Miss Know It All on TikTok said that this peptide was great, and I'm going to inject myself with it and hope I don't get cancer. And I
Everyone
think
at the
that,
gym
like,
is talking about peptides.
Oh, I know.
it's,
Everyone's on it.
Everybody at the
Everyone.
gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't, I know that I'm coming across as like patronizing and shaming, and I try really hard not to do that. But to me, this is about accountability. The fact that I have a license and the fact that Health Canada regulates
Mhm.
medications, including supplements. And Health Canada is like really cracking down on the import of these peptides from, international sources because it's a threat to the health and safety of Canadians.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
so those are the types of things I just like. Obviously, I'm getting a little like turned up about this, but it's, yes, there's responsibility. Yes, there's doing your own research, but there's also having a professional that you
Mhm.
trust to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
conversations about, like, if you decide to move forward with this, that's fine,
Right.
but I don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you what your risk of breast cancer is roughly with hormone therapy, but with peptides, all bets
Yeah.
are off. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No, we were talking about this because pretty much everybody we know, I was like, "Wow, what have you been doing?" Did you join? What kind of gym did you join? It's like you look completely different in 6 months, and it's like, oh, okay. And it's great, and there are some people benefiting greatly from it. And I know that's just, I know of some people who are and good. I think there are people, of course, abusing it, and they're just like, yeah, I just want to lose weight very, very quickly, and they're not really thinking about the potential risk, and there are risks, and everybody's
Yeah.
kind of glossing over that. And I'm old enough to remember when fen was a big thing,
Hmm.
and I know somebody who had heart damage from it. And then when it first came out, everybody's like, "This is amazing." I'm
Hmm.
losing so much weight. I look great. And then 6 months later, they had heart damage. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, have we not seen that we should always think very carefully about anything that we
Hmm.
adopt to change ourselves that radically? Because there is nothing that ever comes for free. Nothing comes
Yeah.
for free. And the only thing I say comes for free, which I don't see any downsides, is exercise. It's like,
Exercise.
it's magical.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
and it
I
is, it is.
I couldn't agree more. And, I came up and was training in the time of, opiates are great for pain control. And there's
Yeah.
no, like,
There's
there's
no
no
downside.
downsides to
Yeah.
this. And there, it'll just manage your pain and like opiates for everybody. And like, whoops, like that was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
our bad, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so and again, like I don't mean to shame folks, and I understand the desire to take one's health into one's own hands. And and I too have people that I love dearly who are on peptides, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
I really, really hope that we are not having a conversation about malignancy in 5 years, because
Sure.
yeah,
I just don't
yeah.
know. And are those gains worth it? And
Right.
maybe if
Yeah.
it helps to maintain your your cardiovascular fitness and
Sure.
your how you show up in the world, and
Diabetes risk.
everybody's
Yeah.
risk
Yeah.
tolerance is different.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's always trade-offs. It's like you're always kind of choosing the lesser of two evils in most cases. Exercise, I will argue to the grave, probably. There's no
yeah, me
downside.
too.
And unless you get stupid about it, you're like, oh my God, I have to work out 8 hours a day and I have to take additional supplements to get stronger. And okay, now you're going too far. But yeah, there's no downside. I mean, everything that comes with it, which I did not expect in terms of the mental benefits and the emotional health benefits. I was like, I had no idea that was going to be part of it. Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. But yeah, everything else you got to be careful and say, is this the lesser of two evils? Yes, there's
yeah,
this increased risk, but if I don't do it, I'm really at risk of cardiovascular disease or diabetes or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, now you're making an informed choice. And
right.
sometimes life is like that. You got to choose the lesser of two evils. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. But not everybody's in that situation.
Thoughtful
So
question.
yeah. So if you had to think about the experiences you've had with your patients and the advice that you give
Mhm.
them and what they come to you with, what kind of advice do you give people to really optimize this next half of their life that can really make a huge difference in terms of like, okay, your quality of life, your relationships, your sexual relationships, everything, emotional health, all that? It's like, what do you typically say and do with your patients to say, okay, let's have you actually have a really great second half of life here? It's not all downhill from here. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So I feel like I do I do less, even though I clearly like to talk, I do less talking and more listening when it comes to this
Hmm.
particular issue. And really, because I'll kind of dovetail a little bit into libido, because this is also a very common thing that I'm comfortable talking about that a lot of doctors aren't. And we know that libido declines in the years leading up to menopause and for a couple of years thereafter, but then it'll usually rebound. Interestingly, in women, testosterone levels also decrease throughout the lifespan, but start to
Mm.
like reemerge again after age 60. With men, it's a pretty steady decline.
Yeah.
And if you want me to go into more detail about erectile dysfunction, I'm happy to do that too. But when I'm having conversations about libido or really anything, it's what does a fulfilling experience mean to you? What does
Hmm.
that look like to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can apply that to the professional realm. And I had a conversation with one of my midlife women this week who was like, she's been in this like big corporate, very successful, marketing job related to professional sports. And she was like, I'm taking a turn and starting my own business and, going to be doing coaching and that kind of thing. And she used the term values aligned. And I
Hmm.
was like, that I think is key, because and I'll speak from my own experience when I was fresh out of undergrad, when I was an undergrad and fresh out of undergrad, and I was just like hungry. I was like, give me an assignment. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll
Mhm.
do it like two times better than you expected me to do it. And then I'll do more. And, there was this kind of like hunger for success and money and
Sure.
validation
Sure.
and,
Been there.
professional
Been there.
accolades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm speaking your language here, but like in this chapter, in my COVID story, is that in April of 2021, I had a stress fracture in my right femur. And
Mm.
I saw 588 patients in March of 2021, and my femur broke from stress in April.
Oh
And
God.
it left me disabled for most of that year, to the
Mm.
point that I basically like was bedridden and had to learn to walk again. And so I know what it feels like to be disabled. I know what it
Wow.
feels like to wonder, am I ever going to walk again? Am I ever
Yeah.
going to work again? Am I ever going to be like able to live independently again? Am I ever going to be sexually desirable to anyone ever again? Like I've
Mhm.
grappled with those in very, very tangible ways. And that experience like really put a lens on how do I continue to do this thing that I love and that I'm good at, which is medicine, in a way that is physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually sustainable for me,
Mhm,
because I
mhm.
can't keep lighting myself on fire to keep other people warm.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
I'm gonna break. I've already broken. And that was one of the reasons that I moved to Canada, getting back to your earlier point. But when it comes to conversations around, because I've had patients who like came to terms with their sexuality, who, came to terms with the fact that they needed to get a divorce, came to terms with the fact that
Mhm,
they needed to take a lateral move or like quit a job. you
Mhm.
know it's it's sort of allowing the other person to acknowledge things that are difficult to say
yeah,
or that are
yeah.
difficult to look at, or would mean that they're going to have to sit in the storm of incredible uncertainty to move
Mhm.
through that into what the next chapter is going to look like.
Right, right.
And what an honor for me, right, to be able to be there for that. And I don't know if that really answers your question, but like we can take that in a variety of different directions depending on where you want to take the conversation. But
Mhm.
it's like what does a good sexual experience mean for you? That question is going to be very different
Yeah.
for a
Oh,
lesbian
sure.
or a queer woman or a gay man than it is for a straight man. And it's going to be
Right,
very
right,
different for someone who like had to have their prostate removed, or
right.
someone who's had a spinal cord injury, or someone who's, been sexually assaulted, or, I could go on and on. So it really is like, what does a good life, what does a good career, what does a good relationship,
Mhm.
what does a good sexual encounter, what does a good, you know, fill in the blank look like to you? You tell me, you're the expert on you. I'm not.
Right, right.
And realizing that all of those things are connected, right, as you
Mhm.
move
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a big part of my message around empowerment, which I know is touchy-feely, and I'm sure my old tech friends are like, "What the hell's going on, dude?" But I think unless you're a narcissist and a super selfish person, you spend a lot of your life trying to make others happy, and especially as an employee, you're obviously trying to make your employer happy and your
Especially as a
boss
woman.
happy. Well, as a
Mhm.
woman, you say yes to a lot of things, and I was talking about this with somebody yesterday or day before, but there's an interesting phase of life that happens as you get into 50, 60, and beyond, where it's like, "I'm not gonna keep saying yes." And I've reached a point where I don't give a damn what you think, and I don't care. I don't
Mhm.
need to make you happy. I don't wanna make you happy. I'm tired of making other people happy, except for the people I care about. And I think that's a big part of empowerment is taking a step back and saying, "What do you need?" Not,
Yeah.
"Oh, I need to do this for my boss." And it's like, the hell with them. Jobs come and
Mhm.
go. You can find another job. You keep putting yourself on the back burner. You're not taking vacations. You're not taking care of your health. It's like, do you just wanna die when you retire? Do you not
Yeah.
wanna see your children grow up? And I have friends who died before their children grew up, and they'll never see their grandkids because they work to death. And so I think what I really want people to do is to say, "I deserve to enjoy life." It's
Yep.
brief. And you get to this point, it's like, okay, sometimes I'm gonna say no to something, and I don't need to give you a reason. I don't need to
Mhm.
justify it. I just don't wanna do it, and I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna do this because it will make me happy, and I need to take care of myself, and exercise is one of those things where I tell this story where I never shared it again with anybody, and I said, "I can't attend this meeting this morning." It was a very early morning meeting. I said, I'm at CrossFit then, but I can come right after." They're like, "Oh, this is way more important than your stupid workout." And so I missed my workout, and I did the meeting. I said, "You know what? The hell with this shit. I'm never doing that again." It's like,
Mhm.
this is an investment in me, and they're not
Yeah.
gonna be there later when I have heart disease or I'm dying because I didn't invest in my health, and, I have cardiovascular disease. They're not gonna be there taking care of me. So no more. And I tell
Yeah.
people this is a very empowering thing is to go through your calendar, and I want you to schedule the stuff you need. Put it on your calendar, and it's private. And that can be exercise, yoga, go for a walk, read a book, take a bath, have a glass of wine, whatever it is. Put it on your calendar, block off the time. And somebody says, "Oh, aren't you available?" No. Well, what are you doing? That's private. You
Mhm.
don't need to know that.
Mhm.
And I call it pay yourself first with the time you have. And so block it all off and start to say, wow, I matter. And I'm going to have time on my calendar to do things that are important for me for the first time. And I think that's a big change for people, is to say, go ahead and pay yourself first out of your time, and then see what's left over for your employer and for other people. Right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna counter your point here a little bit. Excuse me. um, and also my financial advisor also says pay yourself first. But I think there's one of the questions that you asked me was, what do you think it's important for the male the men
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. Yeah.
lives
Yeah.
of women to understand about kind of the distinction between a woman's experience of this and a man's experience of this. And I try very hard in my writing. I am a feminist. I take care of women and children and
Yeah.
and also I love men. And a woman's experience of the world in this chapter of life is very different because it is just inherently less safe to be a woman in the world,
Oh,
full
yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
And that's true in some countries more so than others. But in general, we're more likely to be assaulted. We're more likely to be in precarious financial situations. We're more likely to be left with children and be responsible for elder care in addition to paying, the bills and the mortgage and all this stuff. So if women are just like, nope, I'm not doing that, then oftentimes they're dropping what they feel like are obligations for caretaking for other people. So I would say it's harder for women to
Sure. Yeah.
put
That
those
is
boundaries
absolutely
up.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I have a mentor here who's one of the reasons that I'm working at the particular clinic that I work at. And, she's a little further down the road than I am. And if there are speaking engagements that comes up because she's like an icon in this area, and she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give them, like, if any of the younger colleagues have
Sure.
would like to go and speak at this thing that I've been invited to, I would like to pass the mic to you. And what a luxury to be able to
That's cool.
say,
Yeah.
nope, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Exactly.
good for her because it's
Yeah.
stressful to take on those responsibilities. And the thing that she has said to me and to us, she's like, it is okay for you at a certain point to be 411 and not 911. And
I like
your kids can come to you, your
Sure.
friends can come to
that.
you, your professional colleagues can come to you and be like, hey, I'm having this problem. And you can be a source of information, but that doesn't mean that you are there to fix their problem.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's an important distinction in getting at your point and
absolutely.
sort of like women's obligations and how they differ. And I would be interested to hear Nicole's take on this
Oh,
too. I
yeah.
think it's just like there's a difference. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking about what you said about caretaking and
Hmm.
the idea that with elderly parents and stuff where that comes on, it's
Mhm.
always the woman that is I shouldn't say always. There's of course individuals where that is different, but even if it's not their parents, they are the one that is
Mhm.
taking care of their partner's parents. We just always step into that caretaking role, even with
Hmm.
children, even adult children. The kids
Yeah.
call me before they call their dad. Um, and so there's, yeah, absolutely a lot of pressure on us at this age when we're just still trying to figure out why our bodies feel so different than they used to, and
Right,
how
right.
to get more sleep.
Yeah. And I think that that was an important point that I wanted to make here, because when it comes to sexuality, which again I keep going back to this because it's my area of interest,
Hmm.
is that when women come into my office and they're the question is libido,
Hmm.
which in I would say 80% or more of my patients, like, libido adult patients, I'll say that libido is on their radar as a symptom. And if you feel like showing up sexually and contorting yourself into the fantasies of your partner is just another responsibility on your task list, then
Right.
that is going to be less like it's not going to be
Not very
fulfilling.
much
It's going to
fun.
be like,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
And
work.
so when it comes
Yeah.
to talking about pleasure and intimacy and reconnecting and having those hard conversations about like, what does a pleasurable encounter look like to you?
Mhm.
You know, what does a pleasurable encounter look like to you? I went and got my roots done last week, and my hairdresser gives the most amazing scalp massages.
Oh
Oh,
God, I love
Telling
those.
nice.
you, this
That's the
woman had
best.
my head in the bowl and like running her hands all over my
Nice.
scalp. My eyeballs were rolling back into my head, and it was like I didn't even know what like planet I was on anymore. And she rinses me off, and you know, she leans over and she's like, "Is the water temperature okay?" And you know, like total attention paid to my
That's
experience,
nice, isn't it?
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She wrapped my hair in a towel. I got up and my phone was ringing, and I was like, "Hello?" Like, who is this? You know, and like though that even though it is like this is a professional, it's a platonic situation, like I just felt so cared for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and the same is true, like I have a massage therapist, same thing, you know,
Mhm.
like there is attention paid to my experience in a way that doesn't expect like an orgasm on the part
Sure.
Right.
of the
Right.
person who's providing it. And
Mhm.
to me, like having sometimes difficult conversations around intimacy doesn't mean we need to start with you need to do something about your erectile dysfunction. It starts with like what does it mean to feel seen and cared
Mhm.
for
And
and
cared
have
for.
your
Yeah.
pleasure centered in that experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I totally get that. I fall asleep every time that they wash my
Mhm.
hair. I'm just like,
Yeah,
either I'm
it's
super
And
fatigued
massage.
or it's like, yeah, I fall asleep. Yeah, every time. They're like, sir. I'm like, what? I just like fall
mhm.
asleep because it's
Yeah.
so, like you said, it's so rare to have that moment where it's like somebody's caring for you, and it's just like I don't know if it's infantilizing or what, but you fall asleep, you just get comfortable and fall asleep. It's like, well, at least I do. I always fall asleep.
Well, there's a
No, it's a good
vulnerability that
point.
comes with that too, right?
Yeah.
Like this person could cut my head off. Like she could
Yeah.
snap my neck back and I could be paralyzed. Like
And
I
the
don't
energy
know.
matters, right? And I think sometimes you feel like you're okay and safe, and other times you don't. Yeah, and I've been in places where I did not feel safe. I think Nicole and I both, we've done couples massages and foot massages where it's like, it's not a relaxing environment. It's chaotic. And it's like, okay, I'm glad we're doing this, but it's not going to be a environment where I'm going to like, oh, I feel so safe. I can fall asleep. It's like, no, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
But I think
Well, and I would
that's a
argue that
really good point.
the same is true in intimacy too, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah. Do you
whether
feel
you're
safe?
having a
Hmm.
partnered experience, whether it's a heterosexual experience, whether it's, you know, in the context of kink play or, you know, whatever, it's do you feel safe? Do you feel cared for?
Mhm.
Do you feel
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that like you can be like fully show up and be messy and have your pleasure centered in a way that is not like, you know, I'm, you know, what am I going to get out of it? Like I'm doing this for you
Right.
in order to
Right.
get something out of it for me. There's like sometimes there's an element of like just being cared for. And if I could say one thing to the partners of all of the women who show up in my office with this question of why is my libido shot, like maybe you need vaginal estrogen, maybe you need
Mhm.
hormones, maybe you need to take a step back at work, maybe you need some respite care for your caretaking responsibilities, and maybe you just need to be seen and cared for in a way that doesn't expect
Another thing.
gratification on the other
Right.
person.
Sure. Yeah.
And those are the types of things that it's like, you know, center her pleasure. And you'll be amazed how much more often she will start showing up to have those experiences with you. And then it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah. I think it's a real shame that people go through life not having that experience. And part of it is cultural. And I know we've talked about American culture versus Canadian versus European. And yeah, America somewhere probably in the bottom third, but anyway, in terms of openness about this kind of stuff. And part of it's generational. Like
Yep.
there were definitely, I think we're becoming more and more aware of how to be a better partner for people and the kind of stuff people need, and not being threatened by the what you need to do to actually make your partner happy and that they have an enjoyable experience. And again, it's almost like it's self-taught. It's certainly it's been a journey. I
Right.
mean, I think, the internet didn't exist when I was growing up. So it's like you just had to kind of bumble your way through life and figure it out if you cared. But
I
yeah, it's
think
different now.
as we are getting older now, that we can make a difference by talking to our children and
Exactly.
our nieces
Yeah.
and nephews and younger
Right.
people, so that they can learn some of this, so that they can have,
Yeah.
I mean, kind of like when you're a parent of a teenager and you're talking to them about sexuality and you're talking to them
Hmm.
about their hormonal changes, we can also have those same conversations about, these are the things that are going to happen when you're older, and these are the ways for you to deal with those changes, and these are the things that you can ask your
Mhm.
partner for.
Mhm.
Right.
Having those open
Right.
conversations can't be anything but good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with one of my adolescent patients yesterday, and I was like, I want you to know that your body belongs to you, and you are
Mhm,
allowed to not give other people access.
Yes.
And if
Yeah.
someone is saying something to you, if they're standing too close to you, if they're giving you the creeps, you you have my permission to say this isn't okay, stop. And
mhm,
I've said that to kids in kindergarten, that
Sure.
your body belongs to you and nobody gets access to it without your permission. And I think that this is a way of, again, kind of like going back to my pediatrics background, there's so much of the culture, especially like with online pornography, but even, we're all Gen X here, even before online pornography, I was aware that I was being sexualized by the time I was 13 years old,
oh,
Sure.
sure.
Yeah.
possibly sooner. I had this weird uncle who at age 5 was like telling my grandmother like she's going to make somebody a great wife one day. And I'll tell you what,
Jeez.
I've been having premarital sex my entire life and I've never been married. And
Mhm,
so I think that it's really important as people who care for younger generations to
mhm,
have these conversations around autonomy and consent and boundaries,
Mhm.
and also
Mhm.
how to receive no. And I practice this in some of the
mhm,
workshops that I go to here in Vancouver, where it's like, receive a no and say, thank you for taking care of yourself. Thank you for honoring yourself.
Right.
Thank you
mhm.
Right.
for having enough self awareness to say no to me. And to stand your ground. And I agree with you. Like this is as important of a part of my job as anything else, like diagnosing cancer.
Mhm.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think it's important related to that, the ability to say no, and that you can say no to people, that continues when people join partnerships, whether
Mhm.
it's
Absolutely.
a marriage or some other significant other. There are some people that culturally seem to think that your ability to say no goes away
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
you get married, and I think it's super important for people to understand that still your body, and you get to make choices, and you get to decide when you feel safe and when you don't.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. That's such an important point because spousal rape was legal in the United States
I know.
until
Mhm.
like within our lifetimes.
Hmm.
And
That's right.
so
Yeah.
there there is that kind of expectation, and I can see both sides of the coin here too. Like, if one is signing up for monogamy, that doesn't mean that they're signing up for celibacy if the other person
Sure.
decides that they
Yeah.
don't want to be a
Sure,
sexual being anymore.
but
But I
that's a
think
different
then
conversation, right?
it's a very different
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
but it's one that's necessary,
Hmm.
right? And so there needs to be boundaries, but it's like, if one is going through postpartum, You know, like my body is a vehicle for nourishing this child who belongs to the two of us, and you're gonna have to take a back seat right now, you
Yeah.
know. Or I, just broke my leg, or I am
Right. Right.
recovering
Yeah.
or being treated for malignancy or whatever. And I think that that's part of like a truly enduring long-term relationship, is having an understanding for that. And I'll also give credit to the male partners of the women who come into my office. Almost universally, the women in my office are like, he's so great, he's so patient, I love him so much. I really like, I want, and I just don't.
Sure.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so then we start having conversations around some of this stuff, like hormone related and nutritional and
It's like,
sleep
would
and
you like to try
exercise
an
and
E string? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Amongst a variety of other things, but it's
Yes.
like, boredom is just like, if what you're being offered is, day old broccoli, steamed broccoli, and you're like, that just is not exciting to me. I would rather go with nothing than that.
Well,
And what's
yeah,
being offered,
exactly.
then,
Exactly.
then we get to have a little bit more fun
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no doubt, no doubt. And I think that's true for so many things in life. I think I posted about this, the other day about friendships, where it's like, you know what, if this is gonna be a one-sided friendship, I'd rather be alone. I'd rather not have the friendship.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with
Mhm.
the relationships. Like, I'd rather be solo with this. I can have a better time going on a hike by myself than having friends who don't want to come and do things, right? So it's like, I don't need these people in my life. But I think a lot of it is communication and openness. And with the
Mhm.
right partner, hopefully they can hear you and not be threatened or take it personally, because we do change. And the men change too. We
Yeah.
definitely change. I noticed changes in my own life and changes that are impacted by my career, which I did not expect.
Mhm.
Totally did not expect. Like, things are going well in my business, my career, my drive and everything's really high. But when it's not, nothing's good. And I'm
Yeah.
down. And I don't think people realize it's all intertwined. This is all interconnected. You got to take care of all of it. You really do.
Absolutely. When one's stress hormones are elevated, and I've seen this physiologically, right? And in a patient with like renal failure, for example,
Mhm,
like if
mhm.
the body has been functioning sort of under this really heightened physiological stress state, the hypothalamic pituitary gonad axis will shut down. And I've
Yeah.
seen a 19-year-old with an estradiol level of a postmenopausal woman,
Wow.
Oh,
because
wow.
the
Wow.
body was under such significant
Mhm.
stress. And
Mhm.
so expecting one to be sexually functional when, the
Yeah.
crap is hitting the fan left, right, and sideways, it isn't really realistic. And I think that that's where you need to have those
Mhm.
conversations around, like, I miss our connection, I miss our intimacy.
Mhm.
Can I run you a bath? Can I rub your feet? Can I give you a back rub with nothing expected in return? Like, I want to feel your heartbeat. I want to look in your eyes.
Yeah.
I want to reconnect with you in these ways that are just like, because then there's an oxytocin release and you get those
Mhm.
like feel good hormones
Right.
coming
Right.
out. And but I think that's where this is evolution and like chapters and changes, and
Mhm.
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
happens regardless of the body you were born into. And
Right. Right. So I know we're almost out of time.
yeah.
Any kind of last words of wisdom that you could share with the people who are here and the people who'll be listening to this later, obviously, for the women, but also their partners, like, what would you tell them, saying, this can make a huge difference and this is the way you should think about it?
Yeah, I think if anything, it's just like, what does pleasure mean to you? What does connection mean to you? What does
Mhm.
intimacy mean to you? What does a satisfying encounter mean to you? And I have patients in their 70s who are not partnered, and they're like, my libido is great. I take care of myself. It is amazing, and I don't have to deal with any of the baggage of
The drama.
relation stuff.
Yeah.
And if that's pleasurable for you,
Sure.
I am
Yeah.
here for it. But self-awareness and honesty
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
and patience with yourself and the people that you encounter
Mhm.
is what this is all about. Because there's everybody on the internet is trying to sell you something. And
Yeah.
it's not fair to you to compare your experience, whether it's professionally or medically or psychologically or sexually, with all of the, slop on the internet, frankly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
be kind to yourself, be kind to other people. And if you want to see me, come check me out on Substack. I'm Under the White Coat. How about that?
Fantastic. Yeah. And I will
Perfect.
share when I repost this links to your Substack, your profile, so people can find Dr. Amber Hull. I love what you're doing. I love
Thank
that you're
you.
willing to be so open and honest with us about this. And I wish more physicians were like you. That'd be fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you. What a lovely compliment. And so lovely to meet the both of you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
Just keep
Thanks.
talking, right? That's
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Keep talking.
talking.
Keep talking. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for joining us from
Yes.
remote.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. And this will be posted later. It'll be a part of a replay, and it'll be on the podcast and all kinds of places where you can consume it. All right. Well,
Very good.
enjoy your week, and we're almost there. All right. Bye.
Okay.
Oh, geez.